Han Ting worries about Xing being upset by false rumors, but is relieved to see she's managing well. He picks her up from work, and they head to the rooftop of the office building. As they overlook the city, Xing reflects on the unresolved conflicts she faced, including ending a long-time friendship with Huang Weiwei. Han Ting advises that growth often requires tough decisions and letting go of something to gain something new. Meanwhile, Yi Chun and Qiu Zi's wedding is approaching. Xing is hesitant about attending, given her past with Yi Chun, but agrees to go when Han Ting asks. Elsewhere, Lin Jia unexpectedly confesses his love to Xiaomeng. She stops him, explaining that while they can be close friends, she doesn't see him romantically. Lin Jia is disappointed. Later, his mother encourages him not to give up, reminding him that resilience in love is important. Yishao, Li Li, Xing, and Han Ting all attend the wedding. Li Li catches Qiu Zi's bouquet and begins to think about her future with Yishao. When she asks Yishao about his views on marriage, he reveals he doesn't plan to marry again. Li Li is shocked, feeling she cannot trust someone who won't consider marriage, so she decides to move on. Su Zhizhou watches with jealousy as he sees Yishao with Li Li. He notices her expression change from happiness to shock. He doesn't know what happened, but thinks he might still have a chance. He notices her distracted mood at work and invites her to a movie. Although she agrees, Li Li leaves abruptly when she receives a call. Su Zhizhou asks if it's about Yishao, and Li Li confirms. Yishao has gotten drunk and Li Li, as his emergency contact, goes to pick him up. There, she calls a cab for him and officially breaks up with him. The next day, Li Li returns the gifts Yishao gave her. Yishao, hurt, asks if she truly wants to end things so suddenly. Li Li says that without an engagement, the relationship has no future and requests that he no longer contact her. Han Ting's grandfather invites him to a family meal, and Han Ting decides to bring Xing along. When he picks Xing up from work, he notices she seems down. Xing explains she's upset that Han Hai won the award over Xingchen despite their hard work. What Xing doesn't know is that the judges consulted Han Ting, and he agreed with their decision because Han Hai has a stronger reputation. At the dinner, Han Ting's grandfather questions Xing about Xingchen's potential to surpass Han Hai. Xing, recalling Han Ting's advice to focus on their own growth, responds that Xingchen is concentrating on its development. Her answer satisfies Han Ting, and the conversation moves on. After dinner, Han Ting's grandfather shows Xing some calligraphy and asks about the meaning of her name. Xing shares that her parents named her because they thought her eyes were as big as stars. Han Ting's grandfather subtly reminds her of the differences in their backgrounds, hinting at the challenges ahead. Xing remains composed. Han Yun learns that Han Ting invested early in Han Hai and shares this with Changhe and Zheng Di. Zheng Di tells Xing about Han Ting's investment, implying that Han Ting is only interested in her because she's naive and easy to manipulate. Xing starts to doubt Han Ting's sincerity. That evening, Xing asks Han Ting what he would do if Han Hai wanted to merge with Xingchen. Han Ting reassures her that any merger would depend on market needs. When asked about his views on love, Han Ting speaks of compatibility being more important than love itself, which makes Xing uneasy as she perceives him as overly pragmatic and calculating. That night, Xing and Han Ting lie on opposite sides of the bed, both lost in thought. In the morning, Han Ting wakes to find Xing gone and the safe open, realizing she found the draft merger contract. Xing had opened the safe, confirming her suspicion that Han Ting plans to merge Xingchen and Han Hai. Later, Xing meets with Li Li and Su Zhizhou to discuss financing for Xingchen. She signs a contract with Changhe, aiming to prevent Han Ting from gaining too much control. Han Ting learns of this and sees the threat. If Changhe acquires shares in Xingchen, it could expose him to his cousin's schemes and risk his position at Dongyang. To counter this, Han Ting urgently meets Changhe, offering his shares in Guanghua for his shares in Xingchen. Changhe accepts, seeing the value in Han Ting's shares. That evening, Xing returns to Han Ting's house, believing Changhe's involvement complicates the merger. Han Ting reveals that it is part of his cousin's scheme to undermine him. He argues that Xingchen needs support from larger entities to survive and credits his investment for its current success. Xing perceives his words as cold and manipulative, seeing the relationship as exploitative rather than genuine. Devastated, Xing feels like a pawn in Han Ting's plans. They part on bitter terms. Despite the personal fallout, Xingchen merges with Han Hai, strengthening Dongyang Group and boosting its stock performance. Chang He betrayed Han Yuan by selling all his shares to Han Ting. Chang He shows no remorse, stating that business is about profit, and Han Ting's Guanghua shares were too valuable. Han Ting's influence in Dongyang Group grows with his increased shares. Han Ting confronts Han Yuan about her dealings with Chang He, presenting clear evidence of their meetings. Han Yuan, caught off guard, bitterly mocks Han Ting's scheming and predicts Xing's feelings for him will never recover. As New Year's Eve approaches, Li Li decides to stay home, and her mother arrives, criticizing her past relationship and pressuring her about blind dates. Su Zhizhou arrives with New Year's gifts, introduces himself as her boyfriend, and eases the tension. Grateful, Li Li appreciates his help. Xing returns to her parents' home for the new year, despite previously agreeing to spend it with Han Ting. Her parents notice her sadness and deduce she has broken up with him. In the evening, Xing watches the fireworks, feeling the weight of their past together and a deep sense of loss. Han Ting spends New Year's Eve alone. At the first board meeting after the new year, Han Ting notices Xing's absence. They announce the company's new personnel plan, ensuring Xingchen retains its R&D team and decision-making power, honoring Xing's request. After the meeting, Su Zhizhou and Li Li return to the office to find Xing has sent personalized messages of thanks and encouragement to each employee, along with gifts, but she is nowhere to be found. Xing decides to take a vacation and disappears from Han Ting's life. Despite Han Ting's repeated attempts to find her at Xingchen, he fails and grows deeply anxious. Li Li advises him to give Xing space, but Han Ting's distress drives him to drink heavily, despite being allergic to alcohol. Others are very worried about him. They stage a shadow play, which, though childish, brings a smile to Han Ting's face. The performance reminds him of a serious conversation with Xing about taking over Xingchen. He feels guilty for breaking his promise to her and reflects on her disappointment. Xing moves to Germany to further her studies in artificial intelligence. There, she meets Li Qin, a prominent Chinese student in the field. Despite his mentor's advice to stay abroad, Li Qin plans to return to China. After the merger, Xingchen is sidelined, and Li Li grows anxious about the company's diminished role. Su Zhizhou, working overtime, assures Li Li that he and the technical team are engaged in a significant but confidential project. Lin Jia's mother, not seeing him for days, pretends to be ill to get his attention. The nanny requests leave, claiming her mother needs urgent care. Xiaomeng volunteers to help care for Lin Jia's mother, and she quickly agrees. Su Zhizhou and the technical team have developed new hardware that reduces printing time to 1/3, greatly improving efficiency, accuracy, and security. Meanwhile, Lin Jia takes time off to care for his sick mother, becoming more responsible and learning to cook, which surprises his mother. Xiaomeng frequently visits, and Lin Jia's mother praises him, fostering their bond. Lin Jia prepares lighter, nutritious meals, but his mother hides spicy snacks to satisfy her cravings. Soon after, Han Ting goes to Germany. He unexpectedly runs into Xing while strolling through the streets. Li Qin, also present, invites them for a meal. During their chat, Xing introduces Han Ting as her schoolmate. Li Qin shows interest in Dongyang's offer and jokes about working with Xing. After Li Qin leaves, Han Ting and Xing walk together. Xing questions why he deceived her if he truly loved her. Han Ting admits fault but explains that balancing love and work is essential, and promises Xing will always be his only love. Dongyang has decided to create a talent reserve. He invites Xing to take part in it. Han Ting has also invited Li Qin to join the team. With Xing and Li Qin, the department's capabilities are significantly strengthened.